All right, everyone. Welcome to another Python video. In this video, we're going to be creating some useful functions. We're going to be creating two functions. One function is going to create comma-separated values to a list, and the other is going to turn and create a list of random integers. So here we go. Here, we're just going to create the very first one. I say def comma-separated values to list, and we're going to take a single string, so we're going to call that text. And then we're going to be returning a list. So we'll just call it that. So we will need to initialize that at some point, but here we go. Let's document our code to convert a string with numerics separated by commas to a list of integers. Argument, which is going to be text, a string CSV, and we're going to return lists, a list of integers. Perfect. All right, one cool thing that we can do here with this kind of format is that we can take a string and use the split method. So let's just see how that looks right away. We're going to say our comma separated values is going to be our text split, and we're going to give it a pattern of looking for commas. And then here we're just going to go print CSV. And then we need a list, which we don't have yet, so I'm just going to put it as an empty list like that. Let's run our function on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so we get something like that. Now the problem is, the split method allows us to separate each individual items, trapping these patterns that we've given it, which was the comma. So 1, 2 traps this one, so we separated these two, and so on. And it puts them in nicely in individual items in a list. Now the unfortunate thing is it still maintains them as a string, which was something not too useful for us because we need them as integer values. All right, so we're going to need to remake this list. Now, there is a quicker way to do this with list comprehension, but we're going to keep it simple and do one without. And I will have the list comprehension solution down below afterwards. So here we go. We have our two variables set. We have our CSV list and an empty list, and we're just going to add values to this list. Okay. So we can do the following. We can say that for item in our CSV list, we can say a list dot append the integer version of that item. So we're going to do a simple typecast and then add that into our a list, and then we should get a nice little list of integers returns. So if I were to execute this code, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that was exactly what we were looking for. Now, a simpler way to do this would be something like if I were to just return a list. So we're going to be doing a list comprehension where each value is an integer of an item. And where does that item come from? Well, for item in text.split by comma. So each item is going to be coming from this result of our text.split, and then we're going to be turning that to an integer. So this is a really nice quick way to do this solution all in one line, but you don't have to do it that way. We can also just use this code, and the efficiency should be relatively very, very similar, almost the same. So we can leave it like that. All right. Now, we're going to need to do random integers. So what we need to do first and foremost is that you always write your import statements, because we're going to need some random. Now, mostly you should write your import statements here, but just for this function's sake, I'm going to write it right on top of it. So we're going to call rand list, and it's going to take 3 arguments: so start, end, and frequency, which should mean the size of how many values that we're going to have. Because of this, we're going to need from random. We're going to import rand range, because we're going to be using this function to generate random numbers, especially integers, starting from this value to that value. So as long as our start value is less than our end value, and and frequency is greater than 0. All right, we're gonna do something. Otherwise, we're gonna say return an empty list because that's an impossible random list. I can say end of rand list like that. Okay, so now let's code our inner portion. Our start is guaranteed to be less than the value of end, and we have frequencies greater than 0, so we should be able to create a list. Okay, so there is also a simple way to do this, but we're going to do a short list way as well. We're going to say a list is empty. Then we're going to go for underscore in range, because we're going to be using this iteration variable, so I'm just going to declare it as an underscore and not use it. And we're going to be looping this for loop frequency number of times. So we're going to set up our loop like that. So this for loop is going to occur and loop only this many times. Okay, so we're going to create a new value. So we're going to say new value. It's going to be rand range from start to end plus 1, because we want to include that value. And then after we have created it, we can say a list.append new underscore value to add that value to our new list that we made. And then we can return a list afterwards whenever this for loop is done. So we can say print, let's see here, rand list. We want to start from 1 to 1,000, and let's have 30 values. Let's see what we get. And we would get the set of random values generated. If we were to run again, it should be completely different 30 numbers, or almost completely different 30 numbers, but it should be randomized here as well. This is nice if you have to test any numeric based functions and you want to give it a lot of test case parameters that are random to see what happens. The first one is really nice when you have to handle like more difficult inputs, such as like a string that has values separated by commas, and this is something that you can do as well. Okay, so for this one here, the easiest one would be list, or not the easiest, but the list comprehension method would be, we would be returning a list. So we're going to write a square bracket like that, and every time we loop, we're going to do start and then plus 1 for underscore in range of the frequency. So we're just translating this into a single line code like that, and that is something you can return as well. But in this case, we just kept it simple. So those are our two functions that are handy, and you can always copy these or even import this file with all these functions to see and to use them in your code. Regardless, I hope these were helpful, and I hope you use them in your future program. Regardless, thank you for watching, and stay classy.